in Russia. Which sounds like a light topic, right? Cute animals, funny memes, everyone loves cats.
It does sound light.
It's not. I went down this rabbit hole, or I should say, cat hole, researching this episode. And what I found is that if you really look at how Russians relate to cats, you end up staring at the entire country. Economy, politics, war, psychology. It's all there, reflected in how people treat their cats.
That's an ambitious claim for a podcast that opens with cats.
Wait until you hear the rest. But before we go any further, hi, I'm Gregory.
And I'm Dina.
And welcome to Sunrise Outlawed, Stories from Russia. This is our first episode.
So if you're hearing this, you're with us from the start.
And we're glad you're here. So, let me get into it.
I should say, I didn't research this nearly as deeply as Gregory did. But I grew up with cats, I've always had cats. I have strong opinions about cats. So my job today is to react, push back, and ask the questions you're probably thinking.
And to keep me honest.
Exactly. When he starts sounding like a lecture, I'll interrupt.
Fair deal. So, both of us are cat people, just to be clear. I had a cat for 13 years. She passed away not long ago.
I'm sorry. My cat's still with me. She's about 12 now, a real senior lady. So between the two of us, the total cat population has been halved.
Tragic on a personal level. But here's the thing. Nationally, the opposite is happening. The number of cats in Russia is growing. Fast. And that's where this story actually begins. So let me throw a number at you. 49 million.
49 million cats?
In Russian homes. According to the All-Russian Census of Household Pets, 2023. That makes cats the most popular pet by a huge margin. Dogs are at around 25 million. Over half of all pet-owning households have a cat. And the number's been growing, 13% since 2020.
That's a lot of cats. But I have to ask, is that actually unusual? I mean, cats are popular everywhere, aren't they?
Good question. And here's where it gets methodologically interesting. The Russian numbers come from direct household surveys, actually asking people if they have a cat. Western statistics are usually extrapolated from indirect indicators, mostly pet food sales.
So they're measuring different things.
Different things. And indirect methods systematically undercount. So when you see cats per capita rankings comparing Russia to the West, the numbers aren't quite directly comparable.
But the bottom line?
The bottom line is undisputed. Russia is among the world's top cat-loving nations. Whether technically number 1 or top 5, the scale is enormous either way. 49 million cats is 49 million cats.
Either way, that's a lot.
And here's where it gets interesting. There's this Russian blogger, Alexei Kungurov, opposition figure, often accused of Russophobia, who did this analysis. He went through the usual list of traits people love to attach to Russians: honesty, hard work, hospitality, cleverness. And one by one, he dismissed them all.
That must have been popular.
Not exactly. But then he paused and found one thing Russians truly, undeniably excel at.
Loving cats.
Exactly. 59% of households, which he claims is the highest in the world. So if you're looking for a genuine, modern Russian national trait, it's not heroic history or loud patriotism. It's the quiet, very real, very widespread love for cats.
I mean, I want to push back on the methodology. Can you really measure love by the share of households? But honestly, it kind of rings true. I look around my friends, my family, everyone has a cat.
And no one had a cat like this 50 years ago. That's the part that surprised me in my research. Because Russians haven't always loved cats. In fact, the history is dark.
How dark?
Very dark. And that's where we're going next. So, rural Russia, 18th, 19th century. Cats are around, yes, but they're not pets, not companions. They're tolerated for one reason: catching mice. That's it. Zero affection. A cat is a tool, like a mousetrap that eats.
Just a mousetrap that eats. That's quite an image.
And it gets worse. Folk beliefs associated cats with witchcraft, misfortune, death, especially black cats. The expression "a black cat ran between them," meaning conflict has arisen. That's directly from this worldview. Cats weren't just unloved, they were feared.
And I should say, this isn't ancient history. When I was a child, I spent summers in the village, and I remember this. When a cat had kittens, people would drown them, or take them to the forest and leave them there. It was just what you did. No one thought it was cruel. It was normal.
And that's exactly what the historical sources describe. Newborn kittens drowned routinely. Cats killed in rituals, buried alive, to protect a home, to cure illness. A black cat's body used in divination. Sick cats just left to die. Only animals that were directly useful to humans deserved care. Everything else was expendable.
And this is the same country that now spends billions on premium cat food and heated cat beds.
The same country. 200 years apart. But before we get to the modern love affair, there's a fascinating middle chapter. The literary cats. And Dina, I want to test something. Do you know this? There's a green oak tree by the shores of the Blue Bay. On a gold chain, the cat, learned in the fable stories, walks round the tree in ceaseless strain.
Of course I know this. Every Russian child knows this. It's Pushkin. We all learned it in school. This magical cat walking around a tree on a golden chain telling stories. It's one of those things that's just embedded in your brain from age 6.
Right. So here's what they didn't tell you in school. Do you know what that cat is based on?
A fairy tale character, I assume?
Cat Bayun, a creature from Russian folklore. And Cat Bayun is not a cuddly storyteller. He's a killer. He sits on a tall iron pillar. He lulls travelers to sleep with his singing. And those who can't resist, he rips them apart with iron claws. That's the original. Pushkin took a lethal, terrifying monster and turned it into a charming literary figure.
Wait, so the poem I recited as a child with a sweet little voice was actually about a murder cat?
A murder cat on a golden chain. Yes.
Nobody told us this. I'm genuinely a little disturbed right now.
And it doesn't stop with Pushkin. Fast forward 100 years, Bulgakov, The Master and Margarita, Behemoth, a giant talking cat who's part of the devil's entourage. Chaotic, sarcastic, terrifying. He shoots people, burns down buildings, cracks jokes while doing it. He's basically Cat Bayun's descendant, updated for the 20th century.
So Russian literature preserved that old fear of cats, made them dark, powerful, unpredictable.
Exactly. And only in the Soviet period does something really shift. But here's the question. Why? Why do cats suddenly go from dark, feared creatures to beloved cartoon characters? What changed?
People moved to cities?
That's part of it, yes. But it's deeper than that. Late Soviet society, especially from the 60s, 70s onward, was, for all its communist rhetoric, remarkably bourgeois in its values.
Bourgeois? Under communism?
Bourgeois. People didn't consume as much as in the West, sure, but the aspirations were the same. A nice apartment, a good job, a cozy private life. Think Ryazanov's films, The Irony of Fate, Office Romance.
Oh, and actually, Office Romance has a cat scene that's almost too perfect for what we're talking about. The main character's big romantic evening falls apart because the children do something to the cat. I think it gets sick or injured, and they have to rush off to save it. And that's what actually brings them together. The cat crisis becomes the turning point of the love story.
Which is very Soviet, right? Not a grand declaration of love, a shared emergency over a cat in a communal apartment. These are films about small domestic happiness, about finding warmth in a cramped Moscow flat with a kitchen table and a bottle of something. And in that world, a cat fits perfectly. Quiet, warm, independent, the ultimate accessory for Soviet domestic comfort.
The cat as an attribute of uyut, that untranslatable Russian word for coziness.
Exactly. And this is when cats become cartoon heroes. You get Leopold the cat, endlessly polite, patient, teaching children to be kind. And you get Matroskin from Prostokvashino, clever, thrifty, self-sufficient.
But wait, can we talk about how weird these two actually are? Because Leopold, he doesn't catch mice. He's a cat. That is supposed to be his job. And what happens? The mice chase him. They terrorize him. The entire dynamic is reversed. The predator has become the victim.
Which is a very Soviet inversion when you think about it.
And Matroskin. Matroskin rents a cow. He enters into a rental agreement in the Soviet Union. He's calculating profit margins on milk production. He's essentially a small-time capitalist operating under communism. As a cat.
And nobody in the Politburo noticed?
And then, the best part. The cow gives birth to a calf. And the question becomes, whose calf is it? The cow belongs to someone else. Matroskin only rented her. Everyone around him says the calf belongs to the cow's owners.
Which is, legally speaking, correct.
But Matroskin is outraged. His logic is pure entrepreneurial genius. The cow may belong to the owners, but everything she produces, the milk, the calves, that's ours. We fed her. We took care of her. He's basically invented the doctrine of value-added labor in a children's cartoon in the USSR.
That's a property rights dispute worthy of a courtroom. A Soviet cat arguing usufruct law on state television.
I love Matroskin, though I should specify, the original Soviet cartoons only. The modern sequels are...
We don't talk about those.
We absolutely don't.
But I think this is genuinely revealing. These cartoon cats aren't just entertainment. They reflect what Soviet society actually valued. In private, behind closed doors. Leopold wants peace and quiet in his apartment. Matroskin wants a productive household economy. These are bourgeois dreams dressed up in fur.
So even Soviet cats were secretly capitalist.
Even Soviet cats were secretly capitalist. And then, when the Soviet Union collapsed, the pretense dropped. And the cat love just accelerated. From cautious Soviet warmth to full-blown 21st century obsession.
From drowned kittens to Instagram royalty.
In about 3 generations. Which tells you something about how fast Russian culture can shift. And also, maybe, about how the modern cat obsession is a kind of overcompensation. Centuries of cruelty, followed by decades of quiet bourgeois affection, followed by an explosion of devotion. Almost like collective atonement.
Collective atonement through premium cat food. I'll take it.
Exactly. And speaking of cat food, that's actually where the economic story begins. But first, a quick break. We don't have sponsors yet. And honestly, if you're a premium cat food brand listening to this, we're very open to conversations.
Very open.
But in the meantime, we do have a Patreon. If you're enjoying what we're doing here, you can support us there. Patrons get bonus episodes on topics that are a little too spicy or too niche for the main feed. The stuff that didn't quite make it in, and the questions we couldn't fully explore.
And actually, Speaking of bonus content, we just finished recording our first patron-only episode. It drops in a few days.
About a Russian thinker most people outside Russia have never heard of, Vadim Tsimbursky. He sat down in 1994 and wrote what amounts to a chillingly accurate prediction of what Putin's Russia would become. From a man who died in 2009, never lived to see it happen.
It's the kind of episode you put on a long walk and can't stop thinking about for days.
If that sounds like your thing, you know where to find us.
And one more thing. On our website, we've put together a playlist, a curated list of iconic Soviet and Russian music hits, with links to all the major streaming platforms. If you want to get the soundtrack of the culture we talk about, that's the place to start.
Links to everything are in the episode description. All right, back to cats. Welcome back. So we were talking about cats and history, cats and literature. Now let's talk about cats and money. Because here's a number that stopped me in my tracks. 84%.
84% of what?
Of all pet food sold in Russia is cat food. Not dog food, cat food. 84%.
That's absurd. I mean, I knew cats were popular, but 84%?
And it gets more interesting when you look at behavior. Dogs in Russia, a lot of them still eat leftovers, scraps from the table, bones, whatever's around. But cats? Cats get their own food, bought specifically for them. Chosen by type, sterilized, urinary, sensitive digestion. It's a whole different relationship.
And I can tell you from personal experience, this is deeply ingrained. When lockdown started in 2020, the very first thing I did was go to the pet store and buy a huge bag of food for my cat. Before I thought about myself, just automatically.
Before buckwheat?
Before buckwheat. And then later, when sanctions hit and imported brands started disappearing from shelves, that was a genuine crisis in my circle. People were panicking. Not about themselves, about their cats.
And this is actually one of the most fascinating economic indicators in Russia. Because what happens in a financial crisis? Prices rise, incomes drop.
Standard recession behavior.
But people don't stop feeding their cats. They downgrade. Super premium becomes premium. Premium becomes mid-range. Wet food becomes dry. Small packages become big economy bags. But there's a line most people won't cross. They won't buy the really cheap, low-quality stuff.
People cut back on themselves before they cut back on the cat.
Exactly. Economists would say demand for cat food is highly inelastic, meaning even big price swings barely change consumption. People will eat less themselves, but the cat still gets fed.
You know what this reminds me of? The zoo psychologist trend. I actually went through this myself. When I moved apartments, my cat was stressed, hiding, not eating, acting out. So I contacted a zoo psychologist. Then a second one, because the first one's advice didn't seem enough.
Wait, 2 zoo psychologists?
2. And the recommendations they gave me, Gregory, it was essentially a full-time job. A structured daily play schedule, specific rituals at specific times, environmental enrichment rotations, calming pheromone diffusers in every room.
For one cat?
For one cat. One of them literally told me I should work from home for 2 weeks so the cat could reestablish a sense of safety. For the cat! I needed a part-time job just to keep my cat emotionally balanced.
Which kind of proves Kungurov's thesis, doesn't it?
It really does. We might not be the most honest or hardworking nation, but we will absolutely make sure our cats are psychologically balanced.
And it goes beyond food and therapy. The entire pet services market has exploded. Grooming salons doubled in 5 years. Cat hotels with 24/7 cameras, so you can watch your cat while you're on vacation. Automatic feeders, smart litter boxes, tracking devices. The breeding industry is booming. The share of pedigree cats is growing.
So what you're telling me is, if you want to understand the Russian economy, forget oil prices. Watch cat food sales.
I'm only half joking. Cats might genuinely be a better economic indicator than the stock market. When people start switching from imported to domestic cat food, that tells you more about the real economic situation than any government report.
Cats as an economic barometer. I love it. And you know what else feeds into this whole ecosystem? Social media accounts for cats. Both of us have friends who've done this. Set up a separate Instagram or Telegram for their cat, with its own name, its own bio, its own posting schedule.
It's a whole genre at this point.
It is. And I have to admit, it's weirdly satisfying. You post a photo of your cat, and you're guaranteed likes. Guaranteed. People who never react to your personal posts will instantly heart a photo of a cat in a box. I know someone whose cat's account has more followers than her own. She finds it both flattering and slightly insulting.
The cat is more popular than the human. That might be the most honest thing social media has ever produced.
Brutally honest. But it says something, right? A cat account is pure positive engagement. No arguments, no politics, no drama. Just a cat. And people flock to that.
Which connects to everything we've been saying. And it doesn't stop at personal accounts. Cats have conquered the media in ways that are, honestly, a little surreal. And that's where we're going next. So let me tell you about Timofey.
The Manel from the Moscow Zoo?
You know him?
Everyone knows Timofey. He's a Palace's cat. Small wildcat, incredibly round, grumpy face, looks like a living plush ball. He's basically the unofficial mascot of Russian internet.
Right. And here's what's remarkable. RIA Novosti, Russia's state news agency. We're talking the equivalent of Reuters or Associated Press. RIA Novosti regularly publishes updates on Timofey's weight.
His weight.
His weight. November 2023. Timofey has gained more than 6 kilograms and is ready for winter. March 2024. Timofey has begun his summer diet and lost 2 kilograms. June 2024. Timofey turned 4. He received a quail as a birthday gift.
A quail!
A quail. October 2024. Timofey gained 800 grams in a month. Mondays remain fasting days. December 2024. Timofey weighs 6.5 kilos and looks like a big round ball.
So the state news agency, the same one that covers, geopolitics and presidential statements, is tracking a cat's seasonal weight fluctuations.
With the dedication of a sports commentator covering an athlete's training regime.
And I want to be really clear about what's happening here. This is the same period, 2023-2024, when there's a full-scale war going on in Ukraine, when people are dying, when Russian soldiers are dying, and the nation's biggest news agency is lovingly documenting whether a cat has lost 2 kilos.
That's the contrast, and it's not accidental. Which brings me to Twix.
Oh, the train cat. That story really got to me.
January 2024. A domestic cat named Twix is traveling on a Yekaterinburg-St. Petersburg train. He escapes his carrier, runs into the corridor. At Kungurov station, the conductor assumes he's a stray and puts him off the train. Volunteers later find him dead, 15 kilometers from the station. Bloodied paws and a dog bite.
And the reaction?
A petition demanding the conductor's dismissal. Over 300,000 signatures. The conductor was suspended. Authorities launched investigations. Lawmakers started reviewing rules for transporting pets on trains. Criminal liability for animal cruelty was discussed.
300,000 signatures. For a cat. And look, I love cats. I feel terrible about Twix. But 300,000 signatures? For a petition about the war? About political prisoners? You can't get a fraction of that. A cat freezes to death, and it becomes a national cause. A human being dies, and people scroll past.
And I think this isn't an accusation. It's a diagnosis. It tells you something profound about what people feel they can safely care about.
That's what struck me, honestly. It's not that people don't care about humans, it's that caring about a cat is safe. Nobody will arrest you for signing a petition about a cat.
Exactly. A cat is the one thing in Russia you can love publicly without risk.
That's devastating when you say it out loud.
It is. And there's a lighter version of the same phenomenon in memes. You know the Natasha meme?
Oh, absolutely. Natasha, wake up! We dropped everything!
For listeners who don't know, it's a meme where several cats have caused total chaos, and they collectively inform Natasha, their exhausted human owner, "Natasha, get up! We need to discuss things."
Poor Natasha.
Over time, it stopped being about cats. It became a metaphor for everyday Russian life. When everything goes wrong, everyone knows it, and all you can do is sigh and clean up the mess.
Which is basically the Russian national experience summarized in a cat meme.
And that's what I find so striking about all of this. Timofey, Twix, the Natasha meme. Every cat story in Russia turns out to be a story about Russia itself. So cats have conquered homes, the economy, and the media. But there's another layer, and this is where it gets really interesting. Cats in Russia have become tools for communication, persuasion, influence, everywhere, from art to banking to political propaganda.
Tools? I mean, I can see how cats sell things, but tools for propaganda?
Let's start with art. You know Vasya Lozhkin?
I love Lozhkin. I've been to his exhibitions. Those paintings, the cats are so angry, so offended by everything.
That's exactly it. His cats aren't cute. They're grumpy, chaotic, sarcastic, petty. A cat under a shower, glaring at the human with pure fury. Cats at desks like bored bureaucrats drowning in paperwork. Cats sprawled across messy kitchens, silently judging human incompetence.
And you recognize yourself in every single one.
That's the genius. He turns everyday Russian frustration into exaggerated comedy, using cats as emotional shortcuts. You don't need to explain the joke. Everyone gets it instantly.
It's like, if you want to say something about Russian life, just put a cat in it.
And corporations figured this out too. Take Sber, Russia's biggest bank. Decades of public distrust. People lost their savings in the 90s, they remember. So how do you soften a massive, intimidating financial institution? You put a green cartoon cat on it.
Sperkot.
Sperkot, a bright green cat explaining banking apps, loans, digital services. There's also Kusya for family content. And suddenly, Sber doesn't feel threatening anymore. It feels friendly, trustworthy, because how can you distrust a cat?
And this is everywhere now. Yandex, Delivery Club, Telegram channels, even local cafes. Everyone uses cats.
Right. And there was this whole thing during COVID, when academic conferences went online. A new unspoken status symbol appeared.
A cat on your lap.
A cat on your lap during a Zoom call. Colleagues calmly petting their cats while discussing global instability, war scenarios, nuclear proliferation. The contrast was absurd and strangely comforting. A small, purring animal grounding the conversation while the world fell apart.
Full Blofeld energy. You know, the Bond villain stroking a white cat while calmly planning world domination? Except now it's a professor stroking a tabby while calmly discussing it. Same aesthetic, lower budget.
Significantly lower budget.
But same principle. Cats as emotional first aid.
But And this is where I want us to be honest. Cats aren't always harmless symbols. There's a darker use. Militaristic communities, the Z community, pro-war channels, they also use cats. Cats in military uniforms, cats holding Kalashnikovs, sentimental stories about soldiers rescuing kittens from rubble.
Which sounds touching, until you think about what it's actually doing.
Normalizing violence, softening aggression, making war feel cozy. After all, who could distrust someone who loves cats? And there's one story that haunts me. Murz.
The military blogger?
Andrei Morozov. His online persona was Murz, slang for a hardened street cat. Not fluffy, not cute, shaped by survival. He fought in Donbass, supported the war, but constantly clashed with authorities, criticized incompetence, exposed lies. His fighting cat image was about uncomfortable honesty, a cat that refused to make war look noble.
And then?
In early 2024, after publishing information about heavy losses, pressure intensified, and he took his own life. The image of the cat, it changed, from defiant to cornered, from a fighter to something exhausted, trapped. Yeah.
That's the thing about cats in Russia, isn't it? They can mean absolutely anything. Comfort, humor, marketing, propaganda, and then suddenly, vulnerability. The real human cost of living inside this system.
And that's not an accident. It's because cats have become the language through which Russians process everything. Good and bad, funny and terrible. So we've covered a lot of ground. History, economics, media, art, propaganda, and every time the same pattern. Cats reflecting something much bigger than themselves. But there's one final question. Why cats specifically? Why not dogs? Why not any other animal?
The practical answer is obvious, right? Urbanization, small apartments, busy schedules. Cats are independent, don't need walks, manage their own hygiene. In a one-bedroom flat on the 16th floor...
Sure. But there's another dimension that people don't always say out loud. Birth rates in Russia are falling, sharply. More and more people live alone or in couples without children. And for a lot of them, a cat fills a role that used to be filled by, well, a child. Something to care for, to worry about, to organize your day around.
And I've seen this taken very literally. I know people, friends, colleagues, who call themselves Mama and Papa to their cats. Unironically, "Oh, Mama's home," when they walk through the door. Posting on social media as Proud Cat Mom. Setting up birthday parties for the cat with little hats.
I have to be honest, I find that a bit much.
Really? You drew the line at cat birthday hats?
I drew the line at calling yourself Papa to an animal that would eat your face if you stopped moving for long enough.
Okay, fair. But here's the thing. Whether or not it makes you cringe, it's real. And it's widespread. And it tracks perfectly with the demographics. Fewer children, more cats. The emotional investment has to go somewhere.
That's true. And if it were just about convenience, we'd see the same pattern everywhere. But we don't. Not at this intensity. Something else is going on, in Russia specifically.
What do you mean?
Think about what we've described today. State news tracking a cat's weight while a war rages. 300,000 people signing a petition for a cat when they won't sign one for a human. People cutting their own food budget to preserve the cats. Corporations using cats to build trust that nothing else can build.
So what's your theory?
Well, first, this isn't only a Russian story. A few years ago, The Economist ran a big cover feature on pets.
What was the angle?
Provocative. That pets, cats, dogs, have essentially become parasites. In evolutionary terms, they've won. They contribute nothing productive. They don't guard, they don't hunt, they don't herd, they just exist in our homes. And we feed them, groom them, take them to psychologists,
I feel personally attacked.
and spend billions on them globally. So the trend of humans being enslaved by their pets is universal. It's happening in South Korea, in Japan, in Western Europe, in the US. Falling birth rates, rising pet ownership, it's the same curve everywhere.
So Russia isn't unique in loving cats?
Not in the love itself, no. But in how that love works, yes. Because in most countries, pet obsession is a lifestyle choice. In Russia, it's also a coping mechanism.
The safe outlet.
Yes. You can't protest. You can't grieve openly. You can't be vulnerable in public. But you can love a cat. You can post about a cat. You can sign a petition about a cat. Nobody will come for you because you cried over a cat.
So the global trend is pets replace children. The Russian twist is pets also replace civic life.
That's a good way to put it. The drowned kittens, the centuries of indifference, the Soviet coziness, the post-Soviet explosion of devotion. That arc is uniquely Russian. And what it arrives at is a society where a cat is the safest vessel for tenderness, for everything people can't express any other way.
So the cat obsession isn't really about cats.
It never is. Cats are the mirror, and what you see in that mirror depends on the country looking into it.
In Russia's case, quite a lot.
Quite a lot. A furry, round, slightly grumpy mirror.
That occasionally knocks things off tables.
While the whole country watches and signs petitions about it. A quick postscript from me. A few recommendations if you want to dig deeper. Cats as a cultural phenomenon in Russia are surprisingly under-researched. There's no single definitive book. Most of what exists is scattered academic articles, mainly in Russian. One author I'd highlight is Sofia Tikhonova. She writes about how cat imagery functions in digital culture, how it softens ideology, carries Soviet nostalgia, makes political ideas approachable. Her work is original and thought-provoking, though I'll warn you, it's dense. Academic dense.
Anything in English?
Mostly Russian. For the historical side, there's an article by the Korshenkovs on how domestic animals were treated in Russia from the 18th to the early 20th century. We drew on some of their findings today. But honestly, my main recommendation isn't academic. Watch Russian and Soviet films. Cinema often captures everyday culture better than any paper. And pay attention to how cats appear in them, usually with real warmth. Matroskin from Prostokvashino is a must. The original Soviet cartoons only, as we discussed. And if you want to see how cats work in contemporary visual culture, look up Vasya Lozhkin's paintings. Dina's been to his exhibitions and can vouch, there's something else in person.
They really are.
All the links are in the episode description. Thanks for listening and for staying with us until the very end.